two, one. Somebody keeps trying to join the Zoom meeting that is not part of the Zoom meeting. Go away. Mr. Jeff Kyle, brother of Chris Kyle, and I should introduce myself as Tommy Carrigan, brother of John Carrigan. So
there you go.
We're just starting recording real quick. So we were just talking about this microphone, how it set me off, and I think it was episode 777 or 776. I actually had people texting me, and they're like, "Hey, bro, you all right?" Because like, so I was just telling you, I pulled the microphone out of like the cables, and I was like, the CEO of this company is a pedophile. I was like, this company's terrible, and I was like, fuck this, and I just stopped, and I was like, is it this time of year or is it this microphone? And I don't think it's kind of the microphone. It's a lot of money. It should be working, but. And so what I was just saying to you, but I'm not letting the microphone completely off the hook. And
yeah,
but like I was just saying to you, this time of now it's April 28th, 26th, but the week leading up to April 20 or April 15th, I always get blind angry. And the first year anniversary, April 15th, 2015, was really sad. And every year after that, it's just been this like, it's almost like my period. I get like a period.
Yeah, man.
But I kind of want to pick your brain on that. Just because it's well, I mean, I don't rarely do I guess I don't know if I've ever interviewed somebody that's lost their brother before. So it's kind of and I bring him up every episode. But not to I don't want to make you just that. I don't want to make you Chris Kyle's brother. I mean, clearly you're your own person. But like, what is it like for you that time of year?
I'm kind of the same. I don't realize it. My wife points it out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
My coworkers, they can see it. They'll pull me to the side after a call, because I'm a police officer, and they're like, "You're all right, brother?" Because you were, that guy really didn't do a whole lot, and you kind of went off on him. Like, oh shit, yeah, well, I guess today is the day. So it's close. So I get exactly what you're talking about. And you don't realize it until somebody says something, or until you actually catch yourself, going a little overboard, and you're like, damn.
You're like, I really lost my cool. And like, and then sometimes you have to differentiate, because again, I'm not going to entirely let this microphone manufacturer off the hook. It's a fucking expensive microphone. But like, so like I interview like a ton of authors, and I always listen on Audible because I have the attention span of a frog. So I like have to listen while I'm going to the gym and shit. And every once in a while I'll interview an author, and like their book's not on Audible, which is fine. You get it on Kindle, and then you can get your phone to just read it to you. It just reads the screen. It's for like, it's like it's a feature of iPhones for like blind people and for idiots like me that don't like to read. And so like, I'll just have it read it to me. And this sounds kind of unique, but like Audible won't read you the footnotes of a book, because you don't read the footnotes of a book. You just keep going through.
Yeah.
When your phone reads the screen, it reads everything. So like, if you get like a text while you're listening to the book, it will be like, Jeff Kyle, yeah, brother, see you then. And then you'll be so you have to put it on like airplane mode while you're like listening to it, so you don't get anything. But it reads the footnotes, which is whatever. I've done it 1,000 times. And it was like a week before. It was like a week before John's anniversary, and I was listening to this book. I was at the gym, like literally like I do every day, and it was just reading the footnotes at the bottom, which was like an extra 10 seconds a page. But it was, it was like 2004, 7 November, New York Times article, and then start the next page. And I was like halfway. I was lucky that I was alone at the gym, because I was like halfway through like a set, and I didn't know if I was like gonna cry or yell. But I just dropped the weights, and I just went, just read the fucking book. And that was, I stopped. It was biblical. It was like storming outside, and I stopped, and I was like, you get a grip on it. And then like 4 hours later, I flipped out on the microphone, and I was like, okay, taking a week off. See you guys next week. But it does, you're absolutely correct in that it sneaks up on you, and everyone listening might think, well, how could you be so stupid as to have it sneak up on you on a predetermined date? It just does. It seeps up. It's like a
Yeah,
bill
you
you
try
haven't
to
paid.
prepare yourself,
Yeah.
and you tell yourself, I'm not going to do that this year.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to lose my shit this
I'm a
year.
new man this year. I've
Yeah, yeah,
evolved.
yeah,
I've
yeah. But yeah, I mean, it slaps you in the face without you realizing it.
yeah, and then it passes and you're like, "Oh." Now is that, and again, I don't want to like limit you to just like I said, Chris, but this is more for me. It is kind of
Yeah.
cool that I get to talk to someone that knows the insanity of it. You explain this to everybody else and they look at you and they're like, "All right." Like
Yeah, yeah, you
that
should
make
be on some drugs.
yeah, they're like, "That's cool, Tommy. Is everything okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine. It's just, but and I remember I was talking to this girl and I told her, I was like, "Hey, just," I was like, "You don't know me. Like, we've been talking for a couple months, but this kind of happens to me this time of year." And she's like, "All right." And then like a couple days later, she was like, "Oh, this really does happen. You're not making this up." And I was like, "Oh, fuck, is it that noticeable?" And she's like, "Well, I don't know you that well, but I do know that this is a little out of character for." So that being said,
Yeah.
um, as it does sneak up, and then it now for you, does it immediately stop after? Because I find with me, I mean, it's kind of like flying into the eye of a storm. It just, or not fly. That's a bad analogy because then you go back in. It's flying out of a storm. It's like being on a plane with turbulence, and all of a sudden you punch through the clouds, and then I'm like, oh, we're good.
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, I've had years that it kind of lingered around for a few days past it, but yeah, generally it comes, punches me square in the face, and then it's gone.
Yeah,
It gives me that one day, one moment of
just
insanity, and
yeah,
then I'm good.
yeah. No, it. I would say I really only cry about it probably once a year. You know.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
granted, if I get like if I get too shit faced, I will. But that's kind of a given.
Oh
You,
yeah,
you get too shit
yeah.
faced, you'll cry about your dog when
Hey,
you're 5. It's just that doesn't really count. But like,
yeah.
I'll find whereas it used to be like, I mean, the first year after it was like every day, and then it was like holidays,
Hmm.
and then it was like seeing an old picture. But now it's pretty much around his anniversary. I'll kind
Yeah,
of break down for like 5-10 minutes, and then you feel better. It not to like disrespect my brother, but it's almost like throwing up or like taking a huge shit. You're just like, oh my god, I feel better. Like it.
yeah, yeah. And like me, what gets me is if something big happens, because we'd always talk about anything that happened to us during our day, during our deployment, things like that,
Yeah,
and we'd kind of bounce ideas off each other and be sounding board for each other, and like even now, even to this day, if something big happens at work, I'll grab my phone and I want to tell him, and I'll pull up his number, and I'm like, fuck, I can't
yeah,
tell him.
yeah, yeah, man.
But
It's my brother always wanted to be in the Air Force, and I'm lucky I still have 2 other brothers. But my oldest brother always wanted to be in the Air Force. Didn't go, but was at Georgia Tech, was doing like post grad research for the Air Force. So like I interviewed Charlie Duke, the youngest man to
mhm.
ever walk on the moon. Like he like knew Neil Armstrong and shit. And he's one of 10. More people have been Pope than have walked on the moon. And like
Yeah, yeah,
when I've interviewed him, there's like no one I wanted to tell more. I was like, dude, I just talked to a guy that walked on the fucking moon. Like
hmm
he walked. I mean, when I interviewed him, it was like I imagined it would be exactly like what John would do. Like I was like 10 minutes in interviewing him, and I kind of just like stopped and I was like, what is it like being on the moon, man? Like I couldn't even like ask a normal question. Finally, I was like, what is, and it was so beautiful because it's been like 50 years and he was still freaking out. He was like, it's crazy, you're on the moon. And like,
yeah, yeah,
he's like, you're walking around going, oh my fuck, I'm on the moon. But like, him or like my brother was an engineer. I interviewed the head of the NASA rover program, like the guy in charge of throwing the
really.
rovers to Mars. And like, sure, it's interesting. It's like a cool name to drop, but like, again, there would be no one more appreciative of it in the world. And then you're like,
Yeah,
it doesn't really add up. And this is, so I always say this to people, and both my brothers say the same thing, and everyone else thinks we're insane. And so I can only imagine that you would relate to our insanity. Is I often say that despite being the single worst thing to ever happen, it was also the most beneficial thing to ever
Yep.
happen to me, in that it well, one, you're forced to look at death in the eyes instead of thinking of it an abstract thing. I'll die when I'm 90. You're like, all right, I'm 23, he's 27. You're like, all right. But it like took a flamethrower to any idea that I had of like my life. Like, so when he had committed suicide, I had just gotten into medical school. I was like, I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm gonna have the white picket fence. I'm gonna do the, like Leave It to Beaver. And like, I was pretty happy. I kind of knew I didn't want to do it, but for the most part, I was like, yeah, this is just life. You get older, you kind of accept it. And after that, it really made me stop fearing anything, and it led to several years of just unimaginable terror and drug abuse. But then but it also gave me the balls to like go out and like start a podcast, and like you don't care about getting rejected, you don't care about how it's received, you don't care about people saying like, dude, you could be a doctor, and instead you're yelling at a microphone in a closet, like, yeah, but you don't care anymore because you're like, dude, I've seen, like I've you don't care. It's just nothing holds a flame to it. You're like, I can't get sad at this podcast not succeeding because I've experienced sadness. I can't, as angry as I get at the microphone for not working, it doesn't hold a candle to like the blind rage of his anniversary. Any anxiety I have, or any like retroactive like analysis of this podcast I do, doesn't hold anything to the retroactive analysis of like, what could I have done to prevent my brother's suicide. So I kind of want to toss that into your court. Like, does any of that resonate with you?
Oh yeah. So Chris was always kind of the front man. He was always the face of everything and the voice, because he had made a name for himself in the military. And I mean, I did my time in the military as well. I wasn't a legend by any means. But and he would always say, he was at the right place at the right time every time. And he's like, I didn't do anything special. I just did my job, and I happened to be at the right place at the right time. I'm just a monkey on a gun.
Yeah.
Which we all know is bullshit. But
yeah,
I was more than happy to, be his brother and help him do whatever he wanted to do, whether it was push his books around. He started up a foundation. It was a fitness foundation, and it provided gym equipment to veterans. Because whenever we return home, we all kind of go through our funk. We don't want to be around people. Being in a gym around a bunch of yahoos wasn't the best idea that we could see in our minds. So we all kind of get fat and lazy and start drinking too much and thinking about everything that we went through. So we whenever we both got out, we started working out again, and we saw what it did to our mentality. Kind of got us clear again and got us back in the game. And so he started that foundation, and it was great. And I sat on the board and I assisted and I did things. And then after he passed, then I guess the second night or third night or something like that, that they wanted to do the family message to the public about everything. There was no way my parents were going to be able to do it. And they said, well, we're going to get somebody to represent the family and give that message to the public. And I said, bullshit. If you're not family, you're not giving the message. It's going to be family, and I'm going to, I'll do it. So, I threw myself into that position, and it forced me to face it, head on, and to, I guess, relive it on a daily basis, because I started doing a lot of interviews and a lot of podcasts and stuff like that. And, than getting out there and continuing to do what he was doing, and meeting different people, and just kind of broadening my bandwidth with people. And so it helped me open up and get away from my I guess my hobbitness, because I didn't want to be around people either. I was the same as every other freaking veteran that came back. I didn't like people. I didn't want to be around anybody. Little things that set me off. So I just, secluded myself at the house and did things at home. So it kind of got me out of my shell and got me out there. And then when that foundation kind of failed, due to, I guess, management, really, because we weren't really involved with it a whole lot. We started our own foundation a year after he was killed, and we started giving back. And last year I did an interview, and up to last year we have given back over $4 million to either veteran organizations, first responder organizations, or individuals themselves. It's just like this last weekend, we had a golf tournament. We have one every year here in Waco, and we raised a little over 45,000 and immediately donated back 25,000 back to local. One of the organizations is it's a firefighter honor guard, and they're a nonprofit, and they raise money to assist their firefighters. And then just last week there was a lieutenant firefighter here in Waco that his house burned down. As ironic as that is, they lost everything. And so, we donated to the family to assist them and trying to get back on their feet. So, that right there has enabled me to get out and do things like that, and continue to do what Chris did, and, keep his name clean, keep him, honored. And, it's been great, and going through all this process through the years, has helped me clear my head, and put me in the right positions, the right spot at the right time, I guess, kind of like him, and, allowed me to, kind of do what I'm doing now.
Yeah. Probably, leading up to, I don't know, maybe in and around a year after my brother died, me and my brother started like a charity, raised a bunch of, I think, like 15 grand for just like mental health research. And then I eventually shut it down because I realized all day, every day, I was involved in something named after my brother, about my brother, trying to prevent a future. And I was like, maybe like constantly reopening a wound isn't the best mode of healing. And
right.
So I eventually stopped that. But one thing that has, and I've talked about it really from the first episode on this podcast, that like my ultimate goal is to make sure that his death wasn't in vain. Like,
right.
It might be confidence, it might be delusion, but I fully intend on making this podcast succeed wildly. I want to really, I'd have to get a ton of money, so it's like years, decades down the road. But I want to set up like some specific like mental health like research hospitals. Something that helped me a lot more so than therapy was, and this is beyond the scope of this episode, was actually doing like psychedelics, like not in like a go to like a party. I mean, like I went and like sat in the woods and took like a small dose of mushrooms and just kind of like sat there, meditated, prayed, and like it brought me a lot of peace. It was also when I did that, that's when I gained a ton of weight after he died. I was super in shape, not the military, but same thing. I stopped going to the gym, got really fat, drank way too much. I mean, really fat, dude. Like put on like 70 pounds straight up. Like
Damn.
man titties, like Austin Powers. Like it was bad shit, dude. And that went on for a couple of years. But the point of all this is like psychedelics I only did them on a handful of occasions, but they gave me the clarity when I realized like 2 years later, I was like, oh man, I'm on a fast track to suicide. It's like, it's a matter of, it's like a plane going down. Like it might not crash for another like 100 miles, but it's like, there's no gas. The wings aren't moving. And it was like, I wasn't trying to land it either. I wasn't nosediving, but I was like, yeah, smoke them if you got them. Like, fuck it. Like, are there any cute flight attendants? Like, you guys want to drink? It's the thing's going down, engines on fire. I was like, don't worry about it. You know, fighter jets are on both sides. I'm like, no, it's cool. We're going to the mountain. Like, it gave me that realization that that's where I was going. And so I told my parents that, knowing full well once I told them that there was no coming back, that they were going to come get me. And they did. Moved home, lost all the friends, girlfriend dumped me, had to stay at home for like 5 years. Needed to happen. Ultimately led to this podcast, and most of the weight loss is gone. Most of it's gone. So, but the point of that whole thing is, so what I want to do is I want to actually see what the clinical applications of that are. And so, like, I've made little steps over the last 800 episodes, and recently interviewing like the head of psychedelic for psychiatric uses at Johns Hopkins. So I'm like slowly putting the pieces together. Again, probably going to be like decades down the road, but that's something I want to do. I know it's not a silver bullet. Man. Yeah. But I look at it as like mental illness with veterans, right? 22 suicides a day. I know your brother wasn't suicide, but I mean, in a way, he was a tangential victim of mental illness. My brother was a direct victim. So like that is something I want to do. But I was talking to a friend like a couple months ago, and she made a good point, because she had known me like before my brother died, and we hadn't talked in like 8 years. And she was telling me, she's like, she's like, I watch your podcast. She's like, I think that's cool that you want it to have an impact. This is the point of me saying all of this. And she goes, but it's also okay to just like live Tommy's life. She's like, the rest of your existence doesn't need to be built around avenging, if you will, your brother, the enemy being mental illness. She's like, it's sweet, and if it helps you move forward, and it does, it helps me, it feels like purpose. Is it just my own antidepressant? I don't know. If it is, who cares? But she brought that up, and that kind of made me examine, like, does the rest of my life need to be hyper focused on that? Because in a way, that's like the loss of another life. Like, is that what I really wanted to do? Did that make me stop focusing on getting married or having a family or whatever, just doing whatever? That whole 10-minute ramble was to kind of ask that to you as well. Has any part of you, because you just mentioned all the things I mentioned, it allowed you to get back out, allowed you to find your own peace, right guy at the right time in the right place. That's how I feel with a lot of it. But then there's also like it's also okay to just like close it up, like put a bow on it, and like go live. Maybe I quit the podcast and I go become a fucking carpenter, and I'm happy as a clam. And it has nothing to do with mental illness, has nothing to do with charity, doesn't need to be some great story. You can just go live in God's country and just live your life. Like, that's okay too. Have you thoughts on that?
Yeah. You know, it's crazy because, like you said earlier, you know, a lot of we go through a lot of the same stuff, and it resonates. Whatever you say, you know, I can see it.
Everybody listening to us is like, these two psychopaths.
These guys need fucking help.
Yeah, and we do, but
yeah. So yeah, I 100% agree with that. So, you know, for probably the first 5 years after he was gone, I mean, that's all I did was just live to lived in his name basically, and did everything, you know, interview after interview after interview, and, you know, public speaking and all this. And I was not happy. You know, I thought I was telling myself I was, because I was doing a good thing, but it was taken away from my family. And it was, you know, it was dividing myself and my wife and my kids. You know, I wasn't there for my kids because I was constantly traveling, doing all this. And just in the past probably couple years, I've this is the first podcast interview that I've done in, I'd say, a year or more. And, because I've stepped back, I've got my career,
Yeah.
I love doing what I do. Being a peace officer sucks, but it's awesome. I
Yeah.
love it. And, I'm fortunate enough to be in a city that, they still support the police. So, even the guys that we arrest, they still respect us, and we respect them.
Sure.
Hey, bad guys, we got to have bad guys to have police. So,
Yeah.
they help us keep a job, and they want to continue to win. So, hey, it's all good.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely feel that it's really helped me to kind of step back a little bit. I'm still um I'm still very active in the foundation, and I'll probably never get away from that. But that allows me to to be me, like I always tell my kids, you do you, boo boo. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm doing me. I'm not trying to be Chris Kyle. I'm just doing me. I'm loving my job. I'm loving my family. And, I go to work at night and I come home and I see everybody the next morning, and it's great. Have breakfast together, drink coffee together, all that. And, coach softball. And I mean, it's just great. So I've been able to get away from doing, I guess, more of the interviews and things like that, and reliving that on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And I think that's helped me, kind of calm down and slow down a little bit and open my eyes to what's directly around me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was gonna say, as I'm sitting here trying to explain how like it's okay to every once in a while, because my mom watches all of my episodes, and uh, every once in a while I'll message her, like if there's like a really in-depth video about maybe not even my brother, but like my own kind of descent. I know she doesn't, I mean, understandably doesn't want to hear that story, even though it's years and
Right.
years. But every once in a while, if it's like a really kind of really touchy, I'll just let her know. I'll be like, hey, FYI, like this one might not be for you. And just because I'm like, I don't, it's my mom. She'll,
Yeah.
I don't think a mother will ever quite recover in the same way that probably even my dad or my brothers did. Right. It's just, I think it's different when you literally grow the person inside of you as the first child. But like, I was going to say is like, I'll email her, or not email her. I'll text her that. And like, kind of asshole emails their mom. No, I'll text her that. And I remember one time she said to me, like, not that long ago, she was like, yeah, she's like, so I went and listened to that episode anyway. She's like, that was fine. And I was like, yeah, I just wasn't. She was like, Tom, what I don't understand is like, you bring up John every episode. Why did this one stick out in your mind? And I realized that I was like, I constantly try to talk about how it's like in the rear view mirror. And she'll be like, I don't think you've gone an episode without mention. Like you would have to, I mean, that's like a lottery. Someone go through 700, and this is episode 790. Somebody go through them. Find an episode that I didn't mention, and I don't know. I'll give you a fucking one of the hoodies I make. But like, so it's like it's just there's some sort of like meta comedy here. We're doing a podcast exclusively talking about our brothers, mentioning how we don't think about it anymore, and it's not our life.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just like that's us sitting at a bar talking about how great it is that we're going to join AA one day. And it's like, what are you guys are shit-faced at noon on a Tuesday, and we're like, yeah, the great thing about sobriety. It's like, what are these assholes talking about?
Well, the thing of it is, I mean, we can't get away from it. It's our life, and this is, it's what we do. We're never gonna shed that. I mean, it's, both of us have said it's kind of made us who we are. It's put us where we are. So, I mean, I don't mind talking about it.
Yeah.
But I don't live my life on a daily basis, going over it, doing podcasts, doing interviews, talking to people. I use my history and what I've gone through out on the streets probably daily to help, because there's a lot of veterans around here and we go out on them all the time. And instead of taking them to jail or taking them to the loony bin, then, I'll sit there and have a conversation with them and, cry with them, whatever,
Sure.
and, get it out of them. And, it helps.
Yeah. Now, despite, yeah, that's a good way to say, yeah, it's not that it's not part of you. It's just maybe you don't need to live in it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'll always mention them. I'll just be using it as like an analogy or something. Yeah. So the point I wanted to make, is how does it? No, it's different because obviously you've served, so you probably have a much more in-depth interaction with it. But for me, for years it went on as like this woe is me to understanding that it happens to a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are survivors of suicide. But really, maybe in the last like 6 months or so, year, I don't know, I've actually started to look at it as like there are so many people in the world that would like give their left nut to have the worst part of their life be losing a sibling. Like I
Mm-hmm.
just, you know, y- I mean, how many families in Yemen, how many like single kids had like their families were vaporized by like a drone strike. Like I interview Dale
Right.
Comstock all the time, youngest ever member of Delta Force.
Right.
He always kind of brings up those stories as well. He's like, after all of it, you start to look back and you go, I was so lucky to only have the trauma that I have. Like
Mm-hmm.
I look at something like I've like a couple weeks ago, I interviewed some guys that fled Ukraine with like their kids, and like I mean, one of the guys sent me a picture, and it was like they were like walking like through a field after their house had been like burned down, and it's just like it's like a little girl with pigtails and like her skin's ashen. She's like gray. She froze to death, and I'm just thinking of that, and I'm like, I'm 31, great health, parents alive, married, healthy, both siblings alive. I have a college education. I have no debt. I'm my own boss. I live in a free country where there's no car bombs. There's no
Mm-hmm.
I can go to the I can pick up a phone and have an ambulance here in 5 minutes if something's ever wrong. I live in an apartment complex with a ton of cops. Like I get to do whatever I want. Um man, what an out I had that the worst thing that's happened to me is losing a brother. Like
Right.
that's like stubbing your toe on the way on in the casino where you just won $100 million. Like, yeah, the stub toe sucks, but like I'm rich. That's I more and more so I'm looking at, and I'll say that to people and they'll be like, that doesn't lessen like what you went through. And I'll be like, it kind of does. Like I look at it and I'm like, yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
man. I mean, what 425,000 Americans died in World War II? Like, dude, I got out easy and I have a wonderful life. The what are your thoughts on that? Has any of it made you the people you visit on calls? Has
Mm-hmm.
that made you go, God damn, like, here's another veteran. And now there you are as a veteran. You're like, I go home to a wife and kids and have breakfast with them. This guy doesn't have
Yep.
anything.
Yep.
What are your
Yeah,
thoughts
oh,
on that?
definitely. Yeah. Yeah. From even from when I first came back from, the military, I was one of the fortunate ones. Me and Chris both were extremely fortunate for one to have each other to, kind of resignate everything off of. But our family, our parents are extremely supportive. You know, we're the same way. Our parents are still married, alive. They're amazing people. My in-laws are amazing people. My wife, she's been there. She's seen me at my absolute worst. She's had to slap me a few times and kind of bring me back to my reality. I've got brothers that I served with that I'm still extremely close to, and I can pick up the phone
Mm-hmm.
any time of day, any day, and call them, and they'll be at my doorstep. You know, I've got partners at the department that they're the same way. You know, I've got friends all over the place that support me and, you know me well enough to be like, man, you know, you, I've, a buddy of mine that I've been real close to for several years. I got to know him through Chris. He worked for Chris. He was a Green Beret, and he lost his leg in 2006 in Afghanistan. Rehabbed, got his prosthetic, stayed active. He was the first one-legged guy to go through Green Beret sniper school. Stayed on to teach at the schoolhouse, and you know, I mean, he's just an amazing guy, and he's pulled me out of more ditches than I can, you know, ever remember. But he told me one day, he said, man, he said, you got to quit living in the past and quit dwelling on everything. You gotta live well for them, not just for Chris, but for the rest of your brothers that you lost, you know, overseas and when we came back. And it makes me sad because all the ones that I did lose besides Chris, they didn't have that support system. You know, they kept living in the past, and it got the best of them. They couldn't, you know, they didn't reach out to deal with their demons. And you know, like me, I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna, you know, whoever wants to listen, I'll talk, you know, because it sucks to suck, but it feels damn good to feel damn good, you know.
Yeah.
And whenever you know, I can talk about it any day to anybody, you know, that I know that I'm close to, and I've got such a huge support system that I can do that. And anytime that I'm having, you know, a crappy day, I can talk to them, and it's great, you know. So yeah, I mean, I'm fortunate enough that I've got, you know, me and my wife have 13 acres out here, and you know, we've got cattle and little stupid mini donkeys and cats out in the barn and dogs out in the yard, and you know, we get to go around and do what we want to do. You know, my wife loves her job, I love my job, you know, and I get to sit there and relate to other people on the street whenever I come across them. And it makes me realize that is as little of a call as it may be that I'm going on, it's their worst day. It's the worst thing that's happening to them.
Yeah.
And I get to see that, and I get to be there. I get to be their sounding board to, you know, get them through that time. And, you know, because most of the people that we go on calls on, they're, you know, they don't have a good support system. They don't have, you know, they live in an amazing country and, you know, get to do what they want, but they don't have that support system like, you know, like me and you do. And you know, so their worst day is the day that I'm meeting them for the first time. And unfortunately, sometimes it ends up, you know, they're wearing bracelets, but you know, at least it's, you know, they get to talk to me. They get to yell and scream at me and cuss me up one side and down the other. And, you know, I just grin and bear it. All right. Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of, I never thought about it that way. Yeah. Every person you see, that's their worst. That's the day that in 10 years, like, yeah, man, did I ever tell you that story about how I had to call the cops? Like, or how the cops got called on me? You know, back when I was in that dark spot in life, and I had to, I mean, it is sheer luck that at no point in my lowest was a cop ever called on me. Like, it probably should have happened. Like, I felt something's not, there's no karma. I somehow got it. Like, you know, it's still coming. The karma train's still coming around. So it's like a fucking boomerang. It's still somewhere in orbit. It's coming for me. But like, that is sort of like a, and it sounds, you know, it is like you probably wouldn't be able to be that sounding board or that punching bag if you hadn't survived everything you've survived, right?
Right. Yeah.
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 So like
Yep.
it is sort of, it isn't in vain. And whenever I look at things like it's not in vain, like I get to, text a friend who's suicidal and I can talk them out of it. I can talk to them and whatever. I always tell myself, I'm like, see, it's not in vain. And then like the critic in me is like, that's just you trying to like justify what happened. And yeah, but at the same time, who cares? If it
Right.
if it makes my day a little better, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
You know? If
Yep.
it's if you have a great dream or if you have a bad dream, it's still bad while you're in it. Sure, you wake up, you go, oh, it's just a dream. Tell that to the version of you in the dream that's being like eaten by a lion or something. Like it doesn't
Right.
make you
Yeah.
feel, don't worry, Tommy, it's just a dream. Like I don't care. This sucks.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So at the same time, if you can find like a justification or a way to make it more palatable, like who cares? It's a placebo. I know you just broke
Yeah.
your leg and you think you got morphine, but you actually got a placebo. I don't care, dude. I'm not in pain anymore.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah. Um, to kind of like pivot from that. And this is less really nothing to do with your brother, but more so just about someone that has served. Because I do interview a ton of Green Berets, Delta Force guys, CIA guys. What are your thoughts on the kind of gung ho ness that a lot of people have about, we need to go to Ukraine? And by the way, there's no right or wrong answer. I don't give a shit. But like, I'm not trying to like throw you in the hot spot. Now, tell us about your hot take, Chris Kyle's brother on Ukraine. No, it's
Yeah.
I just, I have a lot of people that, I mean, yeah, sure, your heart goes out to them. You're like, that sucks. But then
Right.
like I said, literally like texting with like the refugees there, and they're showing me these pictures of like a frozen girl. I'm like, Jesus. But then you talk to like the Marines I have on I had on guys that were at Kabul airport last year that lost friends in that suicide bombing. And you talk to them and they're like, yeah, my heart goes out to them. I'm not going. And if you want to go, you can go. Tell me why that's my problem. And you kind of get this like cold bucket of water in your face. You have guys like me that have never left suburbia. And it's like, well, maybe we should stop. And then it's like you have friends that are like the same age as me and look twice as old as me. Like they're missing limbs. And they're just like, do you want to go, Tommy? Do you want to go win hearts and minds? Do you want to go nation build? Good luck. What are your thoughts on that? Just again, nothing to do with your brother, but more so like the guys that you lost. How has that shifted your mindset? Joe Kent, former Green Beret. I don't know if you've heard of him. He's running for Congress out of Washington State. Total badass. His wife was CIA. She died in a suicide bombing January 16th, 2019. He's raising two little kids on his own. He's running for Congress now because he doesn't like the direction the country is going in. I've got to meet him. Total badass. And he talks about how he was in Green Beret training on 9/11. And he was like, I'm telling you, as someone that was full steam ahead, he was like, absolutely not should we go into Ukraine. He was like, I've been the guy that said, rah, rah, let's go. That was 20 years ago. No, not just blood and treasure. Well, blood. It's not our thing. So just, again, I'm not trying to like put you on the hot, but more so just anyone that served that I interview, I kind of throw it to now because so many people can say, send in the Marines, no fly zone. And it's like, who's doing it? So yeah, what are your thoughts?
My stance is kind of the same as the rest of them that you've just talked about. I mean, it's not our fight.
Yeah.
It's not it. We've got so much shit here in our country that, we can't even take care of.
Yeah.
We've got huge amounts of illegals coming across the border every single day. And, the people up in DC are just turning a blind eye to that and saying it's not a problem. But yet wanting to funnel billions of dollars over to Ukraine and send the military, which, I mean, it's bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, when is it ever going to be enough? When are we going to stop putting our fucking noses in everybody else's problem. I mean, let it be. There has been wars in countries since the beginning of time,
Yeah.
and there will continue to be wars in countries until the end of time. And we're not going to stop all of them.
Yeah.
And we need to stop trying to be the world's freaking police and take care of our own damn country.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I look like I'm reading a book right now about, it's called Tomorrow the World, and it's about the birth of like the American superpower, how they're like setting up the pieces during World War II, a 2-ocean navy, far-flung bases, and kind of accepting into the role, right? You had like FDR being like, what are we doing with this thing, with this machine we're building? And then you had all these Alan Dulles, future head of the CIA, John Foster Dulles. You had all these guys saying like, hey, like in their mind, they were true believers. They were like, destiny's calling, like America needs to go start swinging its big dick around. And like, all right, I'm not going to say that I know better than them. I don't know. They lived 100 years ago. I have no idea. But
Right.
like, when I listen to and those guys, I mean, what, FDR's been dead since 1945. The Dulles brothers have been dead for 50 years. Like, talking about a time when like black and white TVs were like a hot product. And like, I listened to this like book, and it's like a zoomed out view, and you look at it from 100,000-foot view, 50 years in hindsight. And yeah, like it does make sense. You go, sure, there's always going to be one superpower. If it's not us, it's someone else. That's just a cold hard truth. If it, it's just, it's, if it's not us, it's them, and vice versa.
Right.
Someone has to be the global hegemon. There does, if we're not protecting free trade lines, then China's bullying. I'd rather us than China. And like, it all makes sense when I'm zoomed out, looking back at decades where 5 years can go by in one sentence. And it's like, yeah, that does make sense. That does. And then it's like, it comes all the way up to like right now. And then I see it in like the blip of the blip of now, and like what the actual cost, like the guys I've interviewed. I mean, I've been a guy named Sebastian, like, yeah, had his arm blown off in Iraq. And like, he's sitting there talking to me. I'm talking to you. I talk to these Delta Force guys, and I'm like, oh, I don't exist 100 years in the future to just zoom out and look at it as like pawns on the chessboard. Tactically, sure, it makes sense. But when you look at the here and now and like the actual costs, it's like, well, in order to continue empire, we need to go to Ukraine. And it's like, hold the fuck up. Why? What are we?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So again, that really had nothing to do with our whole conversation. I was just kind of curious about your thoughts on that.
Everybody's got to know, man.
Yeah. And we'll wrap this one up in a couple minutes. But anything I haven't touched on, because I've kind of been ramming it all down your throat. Anything I haven't touched on, like kind of, or even your own like advice for me as someone that you're older than me, you're wiser than me. It seems like you have more years between Chris's death and yourself than John's death and myself. Your advice.
I honestly, I can give you, things that work for me, but, I mean, the thing of it is, what works for me isn't going to work for you, isn't going to work for the next guy. So, I think doing what you're doing and being completely honest about everything like you are, I mean, I think you're making a difference, not only for the people that you talk to, the people that listen to you, that aren't going to be a voice, that aren't going to be heard by anybody else, and are sitting back going through some of the same stuff that we've gone through. You're making that difference for them, having the people on that you have on, and having the experiences that you've had. And I think it's just, we got to all just continue to push forward and live well for those that we've lost, and not let their deaths be in vain, no matter how how they died. But we gotta do the right thing for them, and continue to love them, and just push forward.
Are you gonna like run for sheriff or something?
No,
Why
no,
not?
man, that's too political.
Why
I
not?
got zero,
Someone
man. I
needs to
got
do it.
zero interest in politics. I don't like, I listen to my chief and my sergeants and things at the office, but I don't want to be pulled by people that have never been in our shoes and have no idea,
I
and they
think
just
you need
want
to do it.
to make the city look good.
I think you need to do it. You know who Mike Duran is, right? Black
Yeah.
Hawk Down. Yeah. I've interviewed him a couple times. He's running for Senate out of Alabama.
Nice.
If you call him a politician, he'll look at you like he wants to shoot you in the face. Like, I'm
Yep.
not a politician. He goes, I don't
Yep.
want. I mean, Mike Durant's loaded, dude. He started his own like helicopter company. Like, the guy's sitting pretty.
Mhm.
But he'll look at you and go, I'm doing it because like, this country is being stomped on, and it's on the graves of the guys I lost. I mean, the Delta Force snipers, Shughart and Gordon.
Right.
He's like,
Yeah.
that's why I'm doing this. He goes, I don't want anything to do with politics. I want to be in and out of DC as quickly as possible. Same with Joe Kent. I talked to Joe Kent's like you. He's got a sleeve of tattoos. He's sitting there. He's like, I don't want to be fucking putting on a suit and doing like I got to go to a fundraiser with him. He's like, I'm from like the walk of like we break things and kill people. He's like, this is so much. He's like, this is so much more aggravating having to like shake hands. And he's like, but he's like, I have to do it because like his wife was going to be coming home from Syria, and when Trump was trying to withdraw from Syria, and when the Joint Chiefs fought back, his wife like she stayed there. She was killed by a suicide bomber. So he's like, he was like, I have to do something. So that's why I'm that's how I'm pitching it. Not as like you want to go. If anybody wants to go in politics, something's wrong. They're a demon. What I'm saying is like you have these guys like Durant and Kent who like don't want anything to do with it, but they're like, I have to, because if I don't, it's a slap in the face to like all the guys I lost. So with that, I'm going to completely guilt trip you and say, I think you need to, man. You know, there is a fucking terrible crisis at the border. You do have people wanting to defund the police. Someone's got to step up and do it. And so now I'm going to absolutely guilt trip you and put that cross on your shoulders. And now you've got a new cross to carry. You thought you're getting out of this one easy.
Let's see how the years go as just an officer first, and then we'll venture into that.
Fuck! Where's the spine? Come on, stand up, do it. You gotta don't take that backseat approach.
I will say that we have a sheriff here that is no nonsense. He puts up with absolutely zero bullshit. And our new chief at the city department where I'm at, she's great. I have absolutely nothing bad to say about her. She came from a absolutely shitty city and worked for an absolute freaking moron in that city, and she has done more for us in the short time that she's been here than the chief that we had for years. And I mean, she wants the police to be the police, and she wants us to be able to do our jobs. She wants us to have the best equipment and the best training, and she wants us to get out there and kick some ass and clean up the streets.
Fair enough. What about Congress?
Oh, fuck that.
Man, I know you don't want. That's the reason why you got to do it. You don't want it. It's not like that's the exact. That's why Mike Durant and Joe Kent are. They don't want to fucking do this.
Yeah,
I think you should, man.
I've spent too much time away from my family and freaking taking bites of shit sandwiches that I'll let some other people that actually.
I'm gonna keep harassing.
Can do
it. I'm gonna keep. I do this to all the guys I have on. We'll finish up an interview. And I'll be like, "It was awesome, Delta Force guy," and I'll be like, "When are you running for office?" And I don't want anything to fucking do with it. I'm like, "Do it."
Nope.
Even Dale, the guy I interviewed, I'm like, "Dale, you should run for Congress." He was like, "When I have a problem, I get to shoot it in the face, and if I can't shoot it in the face, I can call in an airstrike." He was like, "I don't want to go have to sign bills."
That's right. Yeah,
I vaporize things, and I'm like, "Well, all right, well." Fair enough. I'll allow it. Not that I have any fucking sort of authority or the audacity to tell someone I met an hour ago that they need to run for office if they want my approval. Like, you give a fuck. But Mr. Jeff Kyle, thank you so much for coming on here, man.
Hey man, I appreciate it.
I would love to have you on. I'm probably just gonna like use you as like a therapist, because I feel like you know the emotional insanity that comes with losing your brother, and much like you being a cop, I can kind of sound off on you. You just act like a crazy person. I can sit here
There
and
you
tell
go.
you how I'm gonna shoot this microphone, and you're like, all right, let it
Yeah.
happen. You know, other people are like, do I need to call the cops? You're like, tell me why the microphone's bad, Tommy. Lay down on the shrink chair. Dr. Kyle's here.
That's right. That's right.
All right, brother. Thank you so much for coming on. That was an awesome
Thanks for having me,
conversation.
man. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I'd love to have you on again sometime. I'll text it to you when it's up. And yeah, man. Thank you so
Sounds
much.
good, man.
All right, buddy. God bless. Take care.